Welcome to another episode of moTV. I am so excited. It's a new year, it's a new month, but most importantly, it's a new day. And at moTV, Mo Mondays, and especially if you're part of the community at community.momondays.com, you know that January is all about story. Your story, my story, our friends' stories, who we are, what we do, why we do what we do. And it's all about that. And when I was laying out the calendar for what is the best way for this theme of your own personal story, who is the best guest to have on moTV? Well, let me tell you, I couldn't think of anybody better than our guest, Adela Rubio. We're going to find out. I'm going to find out because I forget how we met, but I've known her a million years or close. She is a writer. She's a virtual event host. She creates experiences that spark your, and I'm reading this because I can't trust my own memory anymore, that spark your creative essence. That's an important word. We'll come back to that. And unleash your innate wild creatrix. Good thing I practiced that word before. She's hosted writing circles, and you know how I feel about writing, how important it is. And she's been doing this for 16 plus years. She's a longtime journal writer. She's a blogger. One thing she's learned over the years is how our own lives and experiences, our wisdom, and our stories are all part of who we are. They are crucial to our lives if only we care to look for them. And that's what we're going to do a little bit today. I'm going to read you one quote and then we're going to get right to it. Quote she wrote, and I just saw this yesterday on an email that she wrote. She wrote, "Everything in our world starts and ends with a story. There is no escape. You're either living the static stories you've bought into from others, well-meaning or not, or you're creating your own dynamic story." Get ready for a fun episode of moTV with Adela Rubio. Here we go. Welcome, Adela.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
So in that little intro, I said we've known each other for close to a million years. It hasn't been quite that, but it's been. I'm sure we're coming on to 20 years. We've never met in person. Oh, we've already got hearts showing up. That's just because your face showed up on the screen. See, I didn't get hearts. I didn't get hearts during my little intro, but so we've known each other for close to 20 years, and just before the show started, you were saying about that word essence. Talk to me about that.
You know, for me, that's like one of the key words, because once you tap into your own essence, and for so many of us, that is an adventure in and of itself, because from the moment we come in, we're being told who we are. And we don't get an opportunity, most of us, to define for ourselves who we are and to do it on an ongoing basis, because it's not like who I am today is who I'll be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So for me, that word encapsulates the brilliance that is used, particularly around your creative being. And we're all creative beings. And so once you tap into the essence of who you are, and you have an ongoing dance and relationship with that, you discover, like, you are astonished at who you become and who shows up once you start that dance of your creative essence and playing with it.
And now you're reminding me of why and how we met in the first place. You were actually part of my Essential Message program that I had for a number of years. And I still do that program in some form or another. Now I've moved over all of that content into the community, which you are now a part of as well. But I think it was that we aligned on that notion that your essence, I called it your essential message, you called it your essence.
Yeah, that you know, and I'm speaking as a writer. You know that we have our words that we see and that excite us and spark us, and it's like lighting a fire. And so that is one of my words. And when I saw what you were doing, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be in on this. So I know that one of the things that I did in those days, I used to host what we called telesummits, which are now called virtual events. Um, and I remember that I loved what you had to say about the essential message, and I invited you to be a guest. And then I signed on for your program because I was like, I got to do this. So, and I got more than I bargained for with it.
Well, yeah, 20 years later, we're still friends, and I have to tell the people who are watching this that Adela, we lost touch for a little while, and then we reconnected, and then we just thank you, Suzanne. Adela Rubio is the real thing. Fabulous writer, facilitator, human being, friend, and that's exactly where I was going. Thank you, Suzanne, because that's exactly where I was going with this. We started having these calls every week or every couple of weeks where I'd push you to do a couple of your projects, you'd push me to do a couple of my projects. In fact, I think the community was partly spurred on by your ongoing encouragement. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And you know, I call those relationships, and I highly recommend them. I call them power pals because we see, you know, the power and promise in one another, and we call it forth. And I'll tell you that I've never felt like you pushed me. I feel like you invite me to be more of who I am, and it's a magnetic kind of feeling. It's a pull, and for me, that's one of the distinctions: push versus pull, and that
Mm.
kind of lets you know around your essence what's a yes and what's a no. I find that once you unleash the creative genius that we each are, because it's crazy how creative we are, that it's not like we're not going to be led in the right direction. We will be led, but I think that's part of it. So much of our um, conditioning and programming, disguised as learning, well-meaning, yes, is, you know, learning from others. And it's a wonderful thing to learn from others and for others to, you know, shorten the cycle of your learning. But at some point on the adventure, you have to learn to trust your own inner promptings. And that to me leads you to unexpected places where what you can't even imagine shows up. And it's amazing. So thank you for pulling me.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I love those subtle and crucial distinctions. Pushing, pulling, attracting. I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you. But let's I want this conversation. You just talked about you learn from others, but I believe you learn from others because when they model what you want to have, that's where we learn the most and the best, right?
Yes, and instinctively, I think instinctively when we respond to these learning situations, whether it's a webinar, a show, a program, it's because there's something that resonates strongly enough that we know that whatever the next thing is that we need to get, we're going to get it. And sometimes it's not the actual program. Sometimes it can be the person who's leading it, an idea that sparks. It could be a community that supports you in a way that moves you along. It can show up in so many ways. And I think for me, that's one of the things that I like bringing up again and again is this open, playful adventure energy around anything and everything.
And I know that your workshops are all about playfulness. You can't. I agree with you. You can't if you approach it with this tension that nothing. Then you're just limiting yourself. But I want to get to Adela. You talk about essence. You talk about your own essence. I want to know your own backstory. I want to know when you discovered. Tell me how you discovered your own essence and what you see it as today.
Well, I will tell you that I followed a breadcrumb trail.
Don't we all?
Right?
Okay.
As all good stories, right? It's a breadcrumb tale. You know, it's leading you somewhere where I'm not sure, but this is going to be good. Anyway, so I will tell you that as a kid, I was one of these strange ranger, lone ranger type creative types. I've been journaling since I was a child, writing things because there was so much coming through my head all the time that I just would lose it. So I'd have to write. But I used to actually lie down and imagine and create stories in my head, all kinds of stories. Later on, this is a secret, I haven't told people this, I used to act them out in my room. I'd make pretend like I was a rock star, like I was a singer, like I was touring, because, I've always been a musical person, so that was one of my stories. But I also remember that early on, I grew up in a, not that unusual, there's a lot of homes that don't work. There's a term called a dysfunctional home, and I grew up in one of those, with beautifully fractured people, trying to do the best that they could, but it was a crazy environment. And so I found very early that stories were my friends. And so I was an avid, not only journaler, but writer, and reader, big time reader, and I still am. And so I think that probably the first time that I started really coming into the idea of that the story here matters was I wanted to try out for my college choir. And you had to be a sight reader. And I couldn't sight read, but I had perfect pitch. Ooh. And I knew this about myself, even though my grammar school choir had rejected me because I wasn't a soprano. I'm an alto. So I heard the story of the flyer that said you could sign up for this choir and these are the requirements. And I just said to the story, I see you and I raise you one. And I went into that audition and up front, I said to the musical director, I said, I can't sight read, but I can sing anything you play. And he went ahead to play some, parts, and I sang them perfectly. And he was like, you're in. That was really the first time that I realized that the story that was being told could be changed by the story I told myself.
Ooh. Say that again. That's worth repeating.
The story that could be told can be changed by the story that I tell myself. And there are always, really, if you can imagine just ribbons of parallel possibilities. In any moment, there are ribbons of parallel possibilities, and they are all framed by what it is, who you believe you are, and that dictates what you believe is possible. So expanding that sense of self, that creative essence that is you, letting that come more and more online. Because I'll tell you, the stuff that I learned, left brain learning stuff, oh, I love it. I love left brain candy. Yes, give me more. But when I shift, to this open creative cauldron, just here for the most wildest dance, different things come to me. Things that could not possibly come from the form and structure place that also has a place in this dance. But I've got to be willing to open to that creative vortex and know that creative vortex wants to come through me.
So you said something about the story we tell ourselves. If we change it, we could tell the story that we tell others. I know I paraphrased that really badly, but that's kind of it. And for those of you who don't know, on our Facebook page and in the community, every week we post a little, what we call it, a Mo poster. And so yesterday, I'm going to hold this up. This is so low tech, but this is what we posted yesterday from Adela. Sometimes low tech works, right? I don't have to.
It does.
It says we tell stories about who we believe ourselves to be, and that comes. You saw the person at the bottom there. That's Adela's quote. We tell stories about who we believe ourselves to be. That is such a powerful insight. And so you brought us back to your high school experience, which is in our parlance a classic mini signature story about why you believe what you believe. I want to dig into that a little bit, Adela. I want to find out that realization that you had is, oh, here's a new insight. I could change the story. Did that come to you in that moment? Did it come to you the day after, or did it come to you like 15 years later?
Yeah, that intellectual putting the, connecting the dots, no. That did not happen then. But I continued to do things like that, even though I had no name or language for it. And I think that that's an important thing to notice. Because a lot of times, the creative forces, whatever you want to call them, they move through you and you may not be able to articulate how you did it. But you might recognize a similar feeling. So the similar feeling was this nervousness, and I know this in my body, and I'm a feeler. And I invite people to feel more because this is where the magic occurs. It's in your body. This is one of the places that will tell you and will give you this solid certainty that, you know what, I'm moving in the right direction. My body knows, and it does. And so I had this feeling. It was kind of like a nervousness in my belly with this kind of like rising up, and this one, like, it's like I knew this could be mine. I knew this could be mine, and all I had to do was move some pieces around and do it a different way. And I continued. I have done that in other places. Or I realized, I recognized. So probably the connect the dots happened in my 40s.
Okay, so
And that happened.
Two things.
That happened when I was like 15.
That's I get that. So go, like, one of the first things you said was you followed breadcrumbs, and so I'm seeing these breadcrumbs is when each one of these little experiences, when you felt that feeling, is another breadcrumb that you started realizing that there's a pattern here. There's something. Now in your 40s, in your 40s is when you finally said, "Oh, I get it." Yes?
Yeah. Yes. But it was also because I was in an environment where the inquiry was ongoing because I was doing coach training at that time.
Oh.
So again, and a lot of this creative essence stuff, a lot of this story stuff, it either gets supported or sabotaged by the circle that you create around yourself. That's another thing that I didn't realize I was doing it, but I started doing that early on. And I was like, oh, holy moly, this is how you do it, Adela. So that then you are more conscious, okay, and you could.
So wait a minute. Yeah, I want to get to that, but I want you to bring me back to that. And I encourage people, thank you, Suzanne, for putting your comments down. I love it. I'm going to encourage anybody watching, listening, put your comments in, put your questions, put your observations. And I'd love to see how you feel this relates to your own life. I'd love to see that. And so, Adela, you suddenly have this awareness that, I could change the story about myself. Was that like a mind blow? Like, were you in the kitchen? Were you in the bed, in your bed looking up? Were you like, where were you when that happened? Or was it a gradual thing?
In high school, I started being really interested in how the mind worked. I came across a book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Oh God, yeah.
And it was one of the first books, later on, Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind. Anyway, so I will say that I had these inklings, I had these experiences, and then I was a hardcore seeker for decades, including the trip to India and all of that. But I think this is a key piece is knowing, okay, things can shift. I just made that happen. I just made that happen. How can I do this more in this place, in this place, in this place? And so I went on a decades-long adventure of learning and figuring out and having experiences and being connected to communities of people that were on for the same. And for me, I've always said that a community is rocket fuel for whatever change it is that you want to make for yourself. Whether that community is just one other person, like a power pal or a circle, or, you know, like an online community, like what you've got, people that are connected around this powerful process of storytelling and how they can apply it in their lives and in their businesses. So these are elements. And, you know, once I was, again, already in my 40s, because at that point I was on coaching mode and I was on facilitation and teaching mode, because I wound up teaching at a coaching school. And so I had to lead around content. And I had to come up with my own content. So then I started looking, identifying the breadcrumb trails. Okay, what are the elements that create this possibility for massive change for myself? And yeah, it's a part of recreating the story, but it's also connecting to a circle of people that will reflect that story for you.
Hence, that's why you're so committed to creating those writing circles and the brainstorming circles and all those little communities. That's why we've got community at community, .momondays.com, because these are all people who are, we're gathering together, all the people who want to get better at the science and art of storytelling. Because to your point, storytelling, we think of storytelling only as a way to articulate to others. And absolutely, that's true. We tend to forget how powerful storytelling is as a way for us to decipher the key experiences in our own lives, just like you just did.
I'll tell you, I think that the story about you is the most important story that you can focus on, because there's so much that changes as a consequence. If I hadn't started changing my story so long ago, I wouldn't have done so many of the things that I have done.
So
I've done
that's
so
where
many
you're saying,
things.
that's where you're saying, if I could do it here, I could do it here and here and here. Give me some of those examples. I want to know what those were. Like how did you apply this?
Well, I've got another story about corporate America, which most people will say, no way can you do this in corporate America. And I'm telling you, I did it. I did not have a tech degree. As a matter of fact, I didn't finish college. But I knew that I could manage the technology for this law firm. I just knew that I could. So I just put myself out for it, and I wrote a letter, talking to, I used my skill, my magic powers. You know what yours are, your essence, like mine comes alive in writing. So I wrote a letter about why I could do this. I could do a bang up job in this position, even though on paper I wasn't qualified. And I'll tell you, they sent me for some training, some basic training, and I did all the tech training. Of course, you got to do what you've got to do in the position. I got the position, and I got it based on my ability to convince people that I was a great fit for it, and that we only had to tweak these little things over here. These little things over here, because I knew that I had the ability to get things done. I was great doing projects. I was great working with people. And so I knew that I could do it. And I think that's a key piece, is you have to be able to change your story. You have to be able to claim creatorship.
Good word.
Because if you can't, you have to take ownership of your story crafting capacity to move from extrinsic to intrinsic.
So tell me more about that.
Right?
Explain that.
So moving from viewing you and the story that you create, the world, the life that you are living, whatever focus you want to put to this, whether it's a business, a program, a relationship, whatever, you've got to stop giving the power to the external world and start claiming the power that you have to shape from the internal world. And those are your beliefs and your ideas. Again, what you think is possible. I've done this so many times, I know what I can create. I don't have uncertainty. Once I know what I'm doing, I just go, and it's like I get downloads, whether it's copywriting, the idea, the framework, the content. I'm talking curriculum, everything. I get like once I'm like, boom, and it's just, I open and everything comes through and I just capture it all. But that's because, again and again, it's a practice like anything else. I've claimed creatorship. I haven't let the external story dictate my story. There may be an external story, and I really don't have power in the external. The only power I have is in how I respond to this story and how I shape it to move me further along where I choose to go.
Right. So your story is, if I could rephrase it a little bit, your story is really about taking on the power of creating your story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so for me, parts of the way that you, first of all, one of the things you've got to do right away is you've got to become aware of the stories inside of you that you're living out, that you're not even aware that you're living out, because it's like spyware. You know, you got them when you were little, when you were in school, from most of the time from well-meaning people. But they may be things that are holding you back from you fully expressing who you really want to be, whether it's creatively, the kind of work that you do, however you want to apply this. So I think that moving that, shifting that to the internal and seeing, okay, what can I create here? And becoming aware of the stories that may be in the way of it. And they always show up because you know by how you feel. It's that thought, it's not ready, I'm too this or that, I can't make money, generate income, support myself, whatever the story is. There's a gazillion of them. None of those stories are true, except that you make it so. You can create a different story and create a different outcome. But you have to change the story, and you got to become aware of the story first. And for me, that's where writing comes in.
And interestingly enough, this is not an infomercial on what we're doing here, but I will say that's exactly the workshop that we're doing in the community this coming month, because January is all about your own story. And you'll remember this, because this is a modification of the exercise that we did together 20 years ago. Does this Dr. Credibility ring a bell at all to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, yes.
Yes, it was a powerful exercise, right? And that's the exercise we're doing, because it drills down to the essence, there's that word again, your word, of who you are. So how do you help people, Adela, access that piece of their story? How do you do it?
It's so easy. The way that I do it is I create an environment for your essence to come out and play. That's really what it is, because what I have discovered from doing this for 16 years now is that there is so much brilliance in each person that I have experienced in a circle. The thing is, you know, your brilliance, your genius, your essence, that thing that you are just so amazing at, it's like the nose on your face. I'm sure you've heard this before. It's like really hard for you to get.
Oh, yeah.
However, other people see it, and it shows up in writing. It shows up in writing, like your essence, who you are, starts sneaking through, and you discover things about yourself, and other people witness it and reflect it to you. It's a very simple process. We do like a 2 to 3 minute writing prompt. I always start us off. Lately, I've added some elements to what I do. And I think it's an important thing, because I start off the call with a topic introduction. I always create a framework, because if a framework allows you to show up and explore things specifically, whereas otherwise it's too unfocused. And so I'll start off with 1 to 3 things that I know about this topic. See, that's claiming creatorship right there. This is something that you know solid about this. Then I'll do a guided visualization, because for me, that is one of the ways that you open up and access, you know, what's beyond your thinking, you know, intellect, which is wonderful and awesome. But the magic comes from this other space place, wherever that is, right? And then we write for 2 minutes. That's it. I'm telling you, the poetry, the prose, people, I became a poet from writing circles. I never wrote poetry in my life. Again, the things that start showing up when you open. And so then what we'll have a moment for people to, share any feedback. And the feedback is not a critique. It's a seeing. So it's what you recognize in the writer, something that you notice about what they're sharing. It could be something about how the writing makes you feel. And people, bit by bit, I'll tell you, it happens without you even knowing that it's happening. You start opening, you start flowing. The writing changes. It becomes amazing. What people write in 2 minutes, I'm like, magic. It's amazing.
All right.
And
So
just that,
when is the next? You're getting me all excited. When is the next writing circle that you're doing, and how do people find out about it?
well, actually, there's only one spot left because
Oh,
I keep these small because there's something in really being present in a smaller circle that, as I said, it's not work. And this is how I know that I'm going to be doing this. I don't know how long, because I still keep coming up with ideas to have writing circles around, and I feel excited and energized. And this is the third year I'm doing these in this format. So the next one starts on Wednesday, and there's one spot left. And tomorrow's the last day to register.
okay.
And if folks want to check that out, it's adelarubio.com/join portals, because the topic for this whole year is portals and pathways dancing between dimensions.
Woohoo.
Which is what I believe we're doing in these days. There's a lot changing, and we have to be able to be resilient and move and create and flow with whatever is occurring.
I have a question for you. I want to go. I'm still stuck on your high school choir experience. I think that's such a cool.
It was college.
College. Sorry. All right. So I'm still stuck on that one. How often do you tell that story?
This is the second time. I think the first time I did it was in a compilation book with a colleague of mine. I actually told that story in that book, but I don't really tell that story.
Okay. All right. So ding, 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 ding. This is where I come in and I say, maybe it would be worthwhile for you to codify it, would just mean write it out and know how you're going to format it. Somebody's asking, by the way, where is that link? The link is actually, it's not in the chat, although I could write it in the chat. Maybe I could do it in the chat right now if my fingers don't get it's adelarubio.com, right? That's where people go.
Yeah, and it's actually even on the homepage. There's at the very top. There's a little section on it, so you can get to it from there. Just adelarubio.com.
I think I did it.
Yeah.
I think I did it. All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yes, please. Awesome. I just did. Okay. So where I come from, also in the power of storytelling and just how powerful it is. And again, I'm going to say this again, on both sides of the coin. And it doesn't matter which one, not one is not more important than the other. It's the one of, it's understanding your world, using storytelling to understand your world, as you just did, through this story of your college choir experience, and also articulating articulating your superpower through the story. So what I always help people do is write these stories down. Woo! Lisa Rickett got the last spot. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to do. And Lisa Rickett, I know her personally. She's a wonderful person. I love her to bits. She's gonna love, and you will get a lot of. You're gonna have to do another. You're gonna do. When's your one after this, Adela?
In 3 months.
Oh, that's way too long. I know.
Well, I'll see. I could add a third circle. Right now, there are two circles.
I have an idea. This is what you call real on live streaming brainstorming. You'll do it. I am going to inspire you, attract you to do one of these writing circles within community.momondays.com. What do you think?
I would love that. You know me. I
Yeah.
love to play with others.
All right. All right. You're on. We'll schedule it. You'll schedule it. We'll do it. We'll talk after this. I'm excited. I'm so, okay. Never mind. On to I'll be professional host now. The point that I'm trying to make is take that story of your college choir, write it down, find all those other breadcrumbs and write them out as separate stories. That's what I help people do. And then you've got a bank of stories that are absolutely, oh my God, yes. Yes. Awesome.
I have so many of them, stories of when I didn't have the money to do things and how the money it's I'll tell you, it's amazing what you can do. Just again, you rewrite the story of yourself. That's the key story.
As somebody just posted, oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. So if I were to ask you, now you kind of already answered this question, but I want to ask you it specifically. What difference did it make for you to actually really wrap your head around your own story? What difference did it make for you personally? And what difference did it make for you professionally?
Ooh. I think that the thing that pops up in my head, and this actually happened in 2012, I had signed up with a 5-figure guru who I love, who's an awesome person. And he had recommended a specific model for a program. And I remember that I hosted it, and basically my income was set for the whole year because it was a high-end program. But I got into it and it didn't feel good. People were not playing the way they normally play in my playground. And I canceled it and I refunded everybody's money. And that was the thing that shifted me, because here's a story that I had, that I couldn't get paid for my creative energy, essence filled, wild and crazy, Adela laughing all the time person. I couldn't make money doing that. And that what really generated income for me were my business programs. And I gave it up. That's how deeply this storytelling and this alignment with the essence of who I am, that's how deeply it impacted me. I don't do anything for the money, and I still generate income. I don't do anything for the money. I do things because the creative forces are pulsing through me, and I must take notes.
Yes, take notes. There's that writing thing. Take notes.
Well, this is the thing. That's how I know that's the thing. And what happens is that I can very quickly come up with all the left brain, because I'm a marketer also, and I love marketing. I used to hate sales pages. I love writing. You'll see, there's so much love in the sales page that I created for this. I started getting excited just from reading the testimonials, and I just pulled, I think, 12. I've got hundreds of testimonials, but I just put 12. And every time I sat with and I know these people individually, I know who these people are. These aren't like anonymous people in my community. I know who they are. And I felt that exchange of energy and that realness, that authenticity, that the frameworks that I create, the programs that I create, they enrich lives, and my own too.
Well,
So
I've looked at that page of testimonials. It's impressive. I've contributed to that page of testimonials, and
yeah.
I did it sincerely and honestly because, as Siri just said, oh my God, yes. So we're going to wrap this up. What advice would you give to someone who say, oh, this kind of makes sense, but I don't know where to start? Where do I find those breadcrumbs? What do I do?
I think a writing exercise is almost my answer to everything for as a first step. And so one of the things that I would do, I created a worksheet, I think back in 2010 when I was still at, Coach U, because people love worksheets in coaching communities. And I created one on creating an empowering story. And some of it is about identifying the story, right? So first you've got to identify it. Well, first, claim creatorship. That's number one. I created this story. I can create a new one. I can make and unmake these stories at will. And so then the second thing is get clear on the story. Whatever it is that makes your energy fizzle, that contracts you, that gives you a doggy downer kind of feeling like, oh, right? You know how that feels. Jot that down. And then rewrite the story based on the values that you want to bring into being. And that story is going to let you know which values are being compromised. Right?
Can you say
And
that again?
then
Say that again, because it went by so fast, and I have a feeling it's really important for people to hear that. Say that piece again.
and I'm going to post that spreadsheet up on my website for people to download, just because I think it's a good exercise. So once you've got the disempowering story, you can see what it is that you really desire, what you really want, by the negative expression of it, right? So kind of flip it. And you may have to play with that because it may not be exactly the thing. It may be a variation on it, but once you start writing, it's going to land in your consciousness. Even if it doesn't happen during the writing exercise, later on you might be walking your dog and all of a sudden, pop, this is what it is, right? Because that's how it works. And then the thing is, once you've got that value that you cherish, that's going to pull you into embodying that story. So you got to take action on the story. So one of my stories that I changed, and I put it on and take it off. Again, I make it on and make it, because I am primarily introverted. People wouldn't believe this if they see me out of a context.
We're all
Talking about
we're all introverts, Adela. You know that. We're all in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I just was afraid to meet new people. I'm terrible at networking meetings. I'm the person by the door. And so I told myself, today when you come back from lunch, you're just going to sit next to someone new and say hello. So that is an idea of how you embody that thing, because it used to terrify me. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to be around these 200 people. And I just didn't feel comfortable. Later on, when I would go to conferences, I did something else. I'd connect with people on social media first, so that when I go to the conference, there were at least a few warm faces. So that's what I mean about taking action. But you've got to embody it. You've got to do that thing, that new you. You've got to do something to make her or him real.
All right. So AdelaRubio.com. AdelaRubio.com. That's where you're going to be posting this. We've got an appointment backstage, Adela, with the members of community.momondays.com. I just want to go back to where I started with this, because I think this is such a beautiful quote from you. Everything in our world starts and ends with a story. There is no escape. You're either living the static stories you've bought into from others, well-meaning or not, or you're creating your very own dynamic story. Adela Rubio, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I encourage everybody to go to adelarubio.com, check out what she's got, and I will see you backstage in a few minutes. All right. So That was
Awesome.
Adela Rubio. Thank you very much for watching this episode of moTV. Every month, we've got a great guest. Every month, we explore something different, something wonderful. And I encourage you to come back every month. I encourage you to, this is what we do in the community of Mo Mondays. If this fascinated you, if this piqued your interest or curiosity, check out community.momondays.com. I'm looking here for the right button to push. I think we got it. See you soon. Have a great year. Have a great month. Have a great day.